Welcome to this episode of Behind the Docs, presented by Evan Guthrie Law Firm. I'm attorney Evan Guthrie, and today we'll be reviewing a wrongful death lawsuit against actor Jim Carrey. And this lawsuit was filed in September 2016 and sort of alleges his sort of wrongdoing in the death of girlfriend Katerina White. And this lawsuit is filed by White's husband at the time, and just has a violation of the Drug Dealer Liability Act and also a wrongful death action. And it's just a complaint, so it's kind of the first series that alleges a lot of facts. So again, something that's alleged in a complaint, it's not necessarily true, it's just something that they're bringing forth in a lawsuit that they seek to prove later on. And this lawsuit was filed by attorney Michael Avenatti, so he's kind of a high-profile lawyer that's been involved in other profile clients in recent news. So, and also named in the lawsuit is going to be sort of Carrey's alleged alter ego Arthur King that's involved in the lawsuit, and then also Doe's 1 through 100. So there might be other individuals that might be added as defendants later on in this lawsuit. And then it comes now. Plaintiff Mark Burton, individual, and alleges as follows. So this is kind of the introduction that gives kind of the background of the complaint and kind of the details and facts. And it says, this case is about defendant Jim Carrey using his immense wealth and celebrity status to illegally obtain and distribute highly addictive, in this case deadly controlled substances. After obtaining these drugs illegally under the bogus name Arthur King, Mr. Carrey proceeded to provide these prescription drugs to his 30-year-old girlfriend, Katerina White. Mr. Carrey did so despite the fact that he knew full well that Miss White was ill-equipped to ingest and manage the highly addictive prescription drugs outside the care of a licensed physician, and B, was prone to depression, and C, had previously attempted to take her own life. The result that followed was predictable and foreseeable. Mrs. White overdosed on drugs on or about September 24, 2015, and died. On information and belief as described further herein, after her death, Mr. Carrey took additional steps to conceal and obfuscate his involvement and culpability in Miss White's untimely and tragic death. So then it lists the parties, plaintiff. This is who's bringing the lawsuit. It's going to be herein as called Burton. This individual that presently resides in Portland, Oregon, and Mrs. Burton was the husband of Katerina White at the time of her death, and described below. And the individual plaintiff and additional plaintiffs may be added as this case progresses and shall hereafter be collectively known wherever appropriate within this complaint known as the plaintiffs. So just saying that there might be some additional plaintiffs that might be added to it. At the time of her death, White was 30 years old and had a full life ahead of her. She died in a home in Sherman Oaks in the county of Los Angeles on or about September 24, 2015. It says, defendant James Eugene Carrey, a.k.a. Arthur King, now known as Carrey throughout the lawsuit, at all times mentioned was an individual residing in the county of Los Angeles, state of California. Carrey is a well-known actor who has parlayed his prior roles in various iconic films into over $100 million of wealth. The true names and capacities, whether individual, plural, or corporate partnership, Doe's 1 through 100, inclusive, are known to plaintiffs who therefore sue said defendants by fictitious names. To the full extent the facts linking such fictitiously sued defendants is unknown to plaintiffs, plaintiffs are informed and believe they are alleged that the defendants designated as Doe and is in some actionable manner responsible for the events happening referred to and negligently or in some other actionable manner legally and proximately cause the prescribed injuries and damages to the plaintiff. Plaintiff will hereafter seek leave of the court to amend this complaint to show that defendant's true names and capacities after the same has been ascertained. So it's just leaving room for additional defendants to be named at a later time. And it says the individual defendant Carrey, as well as Doe defendants 1 through 100, shall be collectively known as the defendants. In Number 7, plaintiffs are informed, believe, and allege that at all times mentioned herein, defendants in each of them, including Carrey, Each of them were agents, servants, employees, successors in interest, co-conspirators, joint ventures, co-defendants, such acting within the core scope and authority of said agency, employment, conspiracy, or venture. So it's just saying kind of the hand of one is the hand of all. So it's making sure that if there's any other defendants, that the Carrey may still be liable for their actions. They were acting in sort of together in anything that was done. And now is the general allegation. So this is kind of the story of what they're alleging happened in the matter. So on September 28, 2015, White was found deceased in her house in Sherman Oaks, California. At the time of death, White was engaged in a relationship with Carrey. And it says, on information and further in belief, as part of the obsession with controlling and manipulating White, Carrey had the ability to monitor surveillance cameras on a home White often stayed at, and was able to, by design, to view the residence remotely and keep track of White's comings and goings. Sometime prior to September 28, 2015, without White's knowledge, Carrey's assistant remotely checked the surveillance cameras and determined that White had last entered the residence midday September 24, 2015, but had not left for well over a day. After learning this fact, however, neither Carrey nor his assistants alerted authorities. So it's just saying that they had cameras and were monitoring her, and that she sort of didn't leave for that length of time, those sort of 3.5 to 4 days. And they may have known that something was amiss. And it says, it later determined that Los Angeles County coroner that White had taken her own life by overdosing on a lethal amount of prescription drugs, including Ambien, propofol, and a massive dose of Percocet, which is oxycodone, collectively known as the drugs. So after in the lawsuit, it's going to be called the drugs. These were highly controlled substances, and they were dangerous. However, they had not been prescribed to White, so it's just saying that they didn't have prescriptions for the drugs. She was somehow given these drugs or given access to the drugs by someone else. In fact, when the coroner inspected the residence of White during the investigation of her death, the coroner determined that the drugs had been obtained by defendant Carrey under a bogus name, Arthur King. Indeed, the coroner determined that the drugs that caused White's death, Ambien, propofol, and Percocet, which is oxycodone, all came from 3 pill bottles found in her body bearing the name Arthur King. Carrey wrongfully and legally obtained these drugs in clear violation of California law. Among other things, California law provides that no person shall obtain or attempt to attain controlled substances or procure, attempt, or procure the administration of prescription of controlled substances by 1, fraud, deceit, misrepresentation, or subterfuge, or 2, by the concealment of material fact. Further, the code provides that no person shall make false statement in any prescription, order, report, or record required by this division. So it's just saying that, bring up California law that may apply to this situation. Also says California law provides no person shall in connection with prescribing, furnishing, administering, or dispensing of a controlled substance give a false name or address. And 15 says, on information and belief, Carrey obtained the drugs while White ingested to kill herself from a physician who wrongfully, illegally, and routinely prescribed, furnished, administered, or dispensed controlled substances to Carrey under the false name Arthur King. On information and belief, Carrey conspired with the physician to illegally obtain the drugs in violation of California law and with the full knowledge that his conduct was illegal and fraudulent. Among other things, providing the use of false information and prescription circumvents the purposes of controlled substance utilization review and evaluation system, codenamed CURES, a California Department of Justice database, Schedule 2, 3, and 4, controlled substances prescriptions dispensed in California, serving the public health, regulatory oversight agencies, and law enforcement. So it says CURES is dedicated to the reduction of prescription drug abuse and diversion without affecting legitimate medical practice or patient care. And it says, on information and belief, Carrey wrongfully and illegally supplied, marketed, and distributed the drugs to White on or about September 21st, 2015, just days before her death. So it's just saying that Carrey was the one that provided the drugs to White. And 18, Percocet, oxycodone, and Ambien, 2 controlled substances found in White's system during her autopsy, are Scheduled 2 and 4 controlled substances, respectively, and therefore subject to Cure's reporting requirements. Also found in White's system was propylphenol, a dangerous drug as defined by the Business and Professions Code 40022. On information and belief, Carrey and his physician were engaged in a conspiracy to wrongfully and illegally provide prescription medications to Carrey under false names, including, among others, the name Arthur King. On information and belief, after White committed suicide in an effort to cover up his conduct and complicity in her death, Carrey sent a bogus text message on September 27, 2015 to White, who was already deceased, pretending as though he had misplaced the drugs and insinuating White may have taken them from Carrey without his knowledge, when in reality, Carrey knew full well that he had voluntarily and legally provided the fraudulently obtained prescription drugs to White days prior. So again, it's a pretty strong allegation is saying that he sent the text message to her alleging that, trying to make it look like that she may have taken the drugs from him and that he had no involvement in it. It says 21, indeed, the absurdity of Carrey's claim that White took the drugs from Carrey without his knowledge is laid bare by the following questions. If Carrey legitimately believed that White had taken the drugs from him and she had subsequently gone missing for days with no contact, then why would Carrey not immediately request law enforcement to check on her well-being after she did not return his texts? Thereafter, Carrey continued this charade by publicly offering to pay the funeral expenses associated with White's funeral in Ireland. Indeed, Carrey and his handlers made considerable efforts to publicize his supposed generosity as it related to the death of White. They did so on information and belief in an effort to paint Carrey as a grieving good guy, as opposed to the individual who had legally obtained drugs that killed White. In reality, Carrey never paid a dime for funeral expenses. Instead, Carrey reneged on his promise after learning that White had a minimal amount of money, left a minimal amount of money to her family. Not surprisingly, he never informed the media of his broken promise and decision to stiff the family. Instead, he allowed the perpetuation of grieving good guy image that he and his handlers had crafted for the media. And now it's going to have the first cause of action in the suit, which is violation of the Drug Dealer Liability Act as against defendants James Eugene Carrey and Does 1 through 100 inclusive. So again, it's just saying that plaintiffs reallege, incorporate, reference all allegations made in the previous parts of the complaint. And then it says the Drug Dealer Liability Act is enacted to provide civil remedy for damages to persons injured as a result of the use of illegal controlled substances. So just giving the framework for the suit here. Then Health and Safety Code, which is part of the Act, provides that a parent, legal guardian, child, spouse, or sibling of the individual controlled substance user is entitled to bring an action for damages caused by the individual's use of illegal controlled substances. So in this case, it would be spouse that was able to have standing to bring the action. And then it says Health Safety Code 11705 states that a person entitled to bring action under the Act may seek damages from a person who sold, administered, or furnished a illegal controlled substance to the individual user of the illegal controlled substance, as well as from a person who knowingly participated in the marketing of illegal controlled substances. As set herein above, Carrey violated, wrongfully and illegally obtained the aforementioned prescriptions for Ambien, propranolol, and Percocet under the false name Arthur King in violation of California law. In information and belief, Carrey wrongfully and illegally supplied, marketed, and distributed these controlled substances to White on about 21st of September 2015, just days before his death, on or about September 24, 2015. White ingested these same drugs and shortly thereafter died as a result. White's death was tragic and easily avoidable, as it had a debilitating and devastating effect on White's family and friends. As a result of the torturous conduct of the defendants, each of them, including the unlawful prescribing, procurement, distribution, furnishing, and supplying and administering of dispensing of illegal controlled substances, plaintiffs have suffered severe damages. Pursuant to the Act, the Code, plaintiffs is entitled to recover the following: economic damages, including but not limited to the cost of treatment and rehab, medical expenses, loss of economic and emotional, educational potential, loss of productivity, absenteeism, support expenses, accidents or injuries, other pecuniary loss approximately caused by the use of illegal controlled substance. And also non-economic damages, including but not limited to physical, emotional pain, suffering, mental anguish, disfigurement, loss of enjoyment, loss of companionship in services consortium, and other pecuniary losses approximately caused by an individual's use of illegal controlled substances. Also exemplary damages, reasonable attorney's fees, cost of suit, but not limited to the reasonable expenses for expert testimony. And accordingly, by the way, this action, plaintiffs seek all such available damages in exact amount to be determined at trial. It says, pursuant to the Code, plaintiffs may request an ex parte judgment writ of attachment order against all assets of a defendant sufficient to satisfy a potential award. As a result, shortly after the service's complaint, plaintiffs intend to proceed with ex parte requests for a prejudgment attachment of Carrey's assets, including his Gulfstream 5 jet, in order to provide a satisfaction of likely significant award. So it's just saying that some of his assets, you want to be able to attach them so they can't sell them or get rid of them in an attempt to hide them or be able to not satisfy any judgment of the suit. So it's just kind of another part that can be added to a complaint later on. And then it's going to be the second cause of action, which is going to be wrongful death as against defendant James Eugene Carrey and does 1 through 100 inclusive. So again, it's going to allege and incorporate by reference all the allegations made through the previous parts of the complaint. Then it says defendant's wrongful conduct at all times mentioned herein was both extreme and outrageous and was done to a specific cause with reckless disregard of causing serious harm and injury to White. The conduct did, in fact, cause White directly and approximately serious mental and physical distress, which resulted in her untimely death. It says, as a result, direct and proximate cause of the conduct of defendants, in each of them, including those 1 through 100, plaintiffs have suffered damages in the amount to be proven at trial that exceeds the jurisdictional minimum of this court. So again, it's just not really saying how much they want, but it's just going to trial, and that could really set the amount. And then the prayer for relief. So this is going to be the last part of the complaint. It says plaintiffs pray for judgment against defendants as followed: for general damages in excess to jurisdictional minimum according to proof, for economic damages in amount in excess of jurisdictional minimum according to proof, funeral and burial expenses according to proof, for all future damages, for all statutory allowed damages, for exemplary and punitive damage, for reasonable attorney's fees, for the cost of the suit, including but not limited to reasonable expenses for expert testimony, for prejudgment and post-judgment interest in accordance with law, and for any such other and further relief the court deems just and proper. So again, it's just saying what they wish, and it doesn't give a specific amount, but it's something that can be later asked for at trial and proved at trial. So again, that's going to be submitted by Michael Avenatti here, the attorney, and it just says that they're demanding a jury trial on this suit. All right. That's it for this complaint, and thanks for joining us today.